The Shine on CX Show with Claire Bosque, illuminating the path to exceptional customer service.
Welcome to the Shine on CX Show. I'm Claire Bosque and I'm thrilled to be bringing you insight, stories and strategy that will illuminate the path to exceptional customer experience. Whether you're a CX pro, a business owner, a CEO, or just passionate about creating amazing customer journeys, this show is your go-to resource. We'll be diving into real-world example, expert advice, and the latest trend to help you boost your business and truly shine by elevating your customer experience. So let's get started. Hello everybody, and today on the Shine on CX show, I'm really excited, and today we are in Bali, actually recording in Bali, so you will hear that as an audio, but we are actually live touching each other with Michelle Pascoe. Hello Michelle, how are you?
Hi Claire. Oh, wonderful. It's really great, just as you said, to be together after we met 7 years ago in Beijing at a mystery shopping conference, and our friendship has just gone from strength to strength over all these years through Zoom. And now we're here face to face in Bali, in the States. And even though I'm from Australia, which is what you'll hear from my accent, this is still hot.
It is very hot. And so, yes, we've had that kind of common passion right from the beginning.
Yes.
Where you are based in Australia, I was based in Little Jersey, and we had both a mystery shopping company. You've been doing mystery shopping and a lot on the market research, customer service, customer experience for a long time, haven't you, in Australia?
Yes, yeah, for a long time. So I'm celebrating my 30th year this year. And, you know, when I first started out, it was purely as a training company. And then I realized a very short period of time that we really needed to measure that training, whether it was mine or anybody else's. And my whole reasoning for that mystery shopping company was to look at the shining lights in the business and see what was actually sinking in. Because as you know, Claire, that a lot of teams, you know, they'll do really well after training for about 6 weeks and then they'll either plateau, go backwards, or perhaps shine. And so therefore, that's why I started the business all those years ago. But it certainly developed from then, because I have my own proprietary software, and before COVID I had a team of 70 employees. I think I'm the only MSPA or mystery shopper in the world that has employees, but that's important to me. So yeah, we've got a smaller team of 25, but that's provided me the opportunity through my own software to create research on some of my clients that have been with me for, you know, over that 25-year period.
And so 7 years ago, we met in Beijing for that very first conference, both very much into the mystery shopping side of it, the measuring of that. And then the pandemic hit. We've all had a little bit of a flicky couple of years.
Yes.
And actually, it was a time where we all reflected on what we do and how we do things, isn't it? You've done a lot of things online, virtually.
Yes.
And you're a keynote speaker as well. So you're doing a lot of public speaking, talking about measuring and customer service.
Yes, definitely. So I joined back then it was National Speakers Association of Australia, or probably close to 25 years now, and then became, Professional Speakers of Australia, and then a certified speaking professional quite a number of years ago. And that's provided me the opportunity to be in places like here in Bali and meeting so many different people. But through that aspect of keynoting, I've been able to bring forward the research that I've done, and my expertise is in the hospitality and gaming industry, both Australia and globally. And what that has afforded me, Claire, is the opportunity to work with 5 generations within teams, and now 6 generations in the actual providing of, members, guests, clients, customers, whatever you wish to call them. But probably, and why I got really into that generational thing is because I've been in it for so long. It started off with the pre-veterans, so we could even look back then, those really early people, and seeing their style of leadership, which is that comes from that authentic, that role of authoritarian more so than authentic. I'm not saying that they weren't authentic, but it was very much that role from authoritarian of this is the way we're going to do it. Don't ask questions.
Just
and
do it.
Just do it. It
Right.
was as simple as that.
Right.
Don't show any emotion.
Right.
You know, you've got to be that CEO or that business owner that is not reflecting how they felt within inside. Of course, there's all those anomalies to any generational. You know, I think being a researcher and very much looking at the demography of things, you've always got your outliers in every generation, but it provides us as demographers, well, exactly what are some of those traits that we're seeing in each of those generations. So particularly that generation, it was very, very that authoritative, not wanting to show that they were vulnerable or that they were perhaps having an issue. And it was beautiful for me to see how they then really, some, not all, encapsulated the idea of the newer generations coming through, particularly Gen X, and then of course Gen Y. You know, when they came into the workplace, it was very much that, well, how are things going to be? You know, they're going to be questioning everything. And I think in some respects, Claire, it was some people saw that as a pushback to authority instead of looking at it and going, they're going to ask questions. And particularly in the industry that I'm in, where there is a lot of legislation, whether that is global legislation, your country's legislation, your local area, and then of course your own board of directors. With that, those legislations, it provided us an opportunity to see where those sacred cows were. That got us thinking, not them questioning us because they saw it was wrong, but questioning us of how could things be different, or explain to me that little bit more why. And by doing that, incorporating particularly that Gen Y generation, it provided the opportunity to see some real definite changes. But of course, there was a Gen X, which are always that forgotten generation.
Right. In between.
Yeah. And you've got your baby boomers. Naturally, you know, we talked about pre-veterans, but they also came into that baby boomers group. So with those Gen X, it was, and it's funny, you know, we forget about them all the time, don't we? You know, it doesn't, when you look at any form of market research, they'll go baby boomers, they'll go Gen Y, Z, and of course now with alphas at the end of this year. But poor Gen X always seems to flick through through the gaps.
Missed the boat.
Yeah, which is a shame, because when we look at research globally, they're the only generation at this point of time that has earned less than the generation before them and the generation after them. They were the generation, you know, certainly across Australia, I know of other parts of the world, not the last GFC, but the one before that, when that came about, they lost their jobs for no fault of their own. They had very little superannuation or very little savings, and they really had to start right from the beginning again.
Scratch again.
Yeah, so we're finding them now looking in the workplace where they don't know when they're going to be able to retire.
Right.
You know, different to our baby boomers who have, like all generations, they all work hard. You know, for them, they've put that, they've, you know, saved the money, they've got investments, whatever it might be. Once again, this is rather generalization, but with the Gen X, they look at themselves thinking, when am I able to retire? And because the hospitality industry is my world, I call them the club sandwich generation because you know, they, as I said, you know, earning less, but they're also looking after aging parents.
Right, yeah.
And that is a big impact on them, as well as the children, which are predominantly the Gen Y group, and then of course they then have grandchildren who they love very much, but they find themselves they've got to keep work. They've got perhaps children that are still at home, having a cocktail life, I call them, having a lot of fun, but that Gen X person is still doing so much in the workplace as so much in the home life. And so it's putting a lot of pressure on them, because as I said, they don't know when they're going to retire because they've got less funds. I mean, they have started to accumulate that, of course, over the last couple of decades, but it is still a major impact for them. So when we look at them in the workplace in particular, they are a generation that find it very hard to trust people, Claire. You know, they look at things and think to themselves, yeah, the last time I heard the word change, I lost my job.
Right.
So when you have got them in the workplace, they could be the ones, if you're in the staff meeting, go, hey, we're coming up with these changes we're going to do. They'll pull back in their seats. They may cross their arms. They may start to look down.
Right.
And for some that are at the front of the room, the CEO or the HR person, whoever it might be, go, oh, they're disengaged. But what it is, they're just wanting to have some more information. So, you know, as a suggestion to your listeners, take them aside, ask them, tell them a little bit more about what's in there. Because once you've got them as loyal employees and understand, then they won't white ant. They won't, you know, sort of go outside the meeting room and go, oh, you know, here they go again with another great idea that's going to fail. Instead, they're going to be champions. And so that's where Gen X, as I said, you know, they are this forgotten generation, so to speak, but they really can be quite a strong reckoning force in the workplace, you know, to have them on your side.
Absolutely. And I think also they're still young, they're still fit, they're still healthy, they're still full of, you know, knowledge and expertise. And, you know, you want to make sure that they're part of it and actually really embracing, you know, whatever, if there's other change, they need to be empowering. And they will be leaders of the others as well, I'm guessing. The youngest ones as well, they'll be training them and, you know,
and they will be.
Rooting. You want to make sure that they're rooting for them.
Yes, yeah. So, you know, you're looking roughly at those years 1965 to 79, 1980, you know, there's always those discrepancies a few years and of course the outliers. But what I do find as employees, many of them, it's seeing the potential in them. For many of them haven't had that opportunity in the past or have had that opportunity to put their hand up and give a suggestion or share an idea because they've been, you know, ignored or perhaps to sit down and not looking at gender specific, but, you know, I work with a lot of women in that age group, particularly in the hospitality industry that have worked predominantly on the front line. And not all of them have stepped up into those senior levels or even that middle management level because they've always felt that their voice hasn't been heard. They're a real area that you can start to see and ignite that potential in them because they are still a major part of our workforce.
Right,
very much so.
Absolutely. So what is the next generation then that, you know, obviously we've got the new generation that coming in, and they're so different in their expectations,
oh,
right?
Gosh, yes. Yeah. So, you know, between X, then you've got Gen Y naturally, which is that customization, you know, as customers, they're wanting everything to be customized for them, you know, and hey, that's our fault. Baby boomer parents, Gen X parents, oh, yes, you can be whatever you like, darling. You know, you can have whatever you like. You know, everybody gets a prize. And it was hard for them coming into the workplace because that was their expectation, that everybody got the prize and were acknowledged for that. And it's certainly not their fault, but a lot of senior people found that hard to, well, why are they questioning? Why are they wanting this continual recognition? But Gen Y are now in their early 40s. They're no longer these kids that came in asking these questions. For many of them, they are really strong in, you know, high positions or certainly in that middle management position. They've got a totally different style about them again. You know, they have brought along the journey of technology. But then you look at Gen Z. Well, Gen Z are going to be our biggest cohort globally over the next decade, both as customers as well as employees.
Right.
You know, extremely cyber savvy, not influencers, but they are influenced. So they are a generation that will have, you know, our friendship, Claire, has, you know, transcended across, you know, the globe, but it's always been on Zoom, but we've known each other.
Yeah.
Whereas that, you know, I always have a joke with, because I've got two Gen Ys and a Gen Z child, and particularly my middle daughter, you know, she would put on Facebook, for example, you know, what do you think of these cushions? And I used to think to myself, hey, wait on, that's your mother's job to have that question. No, why are you asking people that you don't know? And I say that with, you know, tongue in cheek, but it's so true. You know, particularly Gen Z are this generation where they will ask people that they will never see, but the impact of other people's thoughts, what they think about them. And to me, that's a lot of pressure for them. They also have not always had the opportunity as past generations to connect with older people, older generations. They may not, for a variety of reasons, may not be in touch with grandparents who may be baby boomers, and certainly, you know, would have to be great grandparents in that the pre-veteran stage. So they'd love to know your wisdom. If you can share with them, you know, when they start to join your business, Yeah, they're after a salary. We all need money and, and then a job title perhaps, yes. But they want to know, why did you start the business? What is it about those customers? If you give them, the more wisdom you can give them, the more of interest they'll be in your business. They want to learn.
They want to learn, right?
Yes, they do. Yes, yeah.
And if you leave them on the side and just totally ignore them and just let them get on with it, that's when they disconnect totally.
Yes.
And they're not scared to kind of jump from one job to the other until they actually find the right person. It perhaps is the person, is it the culture, is it the people? How do you think there's a massive difference there?
I really do think it comes down to individuals within the company. But we talk about culture, and it was quite interesting. I was at a conference last week back in Australia, and somebody was saying to me, Michelle, we really push this culture that everybody, comes into your organisation and they live and breathe the culture, which is what we listen to. But this person really, they said something that stuck out, and I've been thinking about that, is if they're part of our culture, then their thinking is exactly the same as each other. Now, is that good? Or do we look for diversity in thought? And that's why when you look at our diversity of generations, we need that diversity in thought, whether it's gender, whether it's age, whether it's culture, we need that diversity. Otherwise, we just connect with people that are just like us. And that is fine, but it can also be highly dangerous because that's when we start to have a viewpoint outside of our small group, our flock, that everybody else perhaps is wrong or they don't think like us. So, I'm putting it out there to your listeners to have a think about that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Very, very interesting, actually, that it's that thought. So actually, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, perhaps 5 generations within your business, what do you think is that commonality?
Yeah, between them all.
Yeah.
I think, to me, it's values. They've got to have the values. That's what you and I connected with all those years ago. I think, people can, back when I started 30 years ago, it used to be, the values or the mission statement, would be etched in glass somewhere in the foyer, and you say the team. So tell me about your mission. Oh, I don't know. What's your balance? Oh, it's team, customer service. What community, what does that actually mean? And you and I are both Disney aficionados, particularly you because you worked with Disneyland, but that was one of the things I picked up from Disney was, if you don't put a behavior, an action behind every value, then you're allowing your team to self-interpret, and which is fine. However, then the customer starts getting all these different ideas of what values are. So to me, is that value piece is really strong. You may not be congruent with every one of the values of your company, but I know I've experienced, before I started my business 30 years ago, I had a horrific job interview, Claire, and the pay was good, it was close to home, but I cried for half an hour driving back because it was absolutely shocking, thinking to myself, something's not right. I feel sick in my tummy. And even when he rang the next day to offer me that role, and it would have been ideal with 2 very small children, I said no. I didn't know that it was because of my values, and that's what it was. My values were not congruent.
We're not aligned to it.
Yeah, nowhere aligned. And I've always said, if you go into a company, and when I do my leadership training, I always say this CEO, I'm going to guarantee you at least one junior manager is going to leave, and they go, oh no, it'll be fine. But it's true, and it's not that I'm pushing them out the door, but they realise, and there's nothing wrong with that team member, this is just not the right place for them at this point in time. And that usually comes down to the values or what they're seeking, because our values change. We've got those top 8, but even within that 8, they can change. The family may be number 1 while you've got a young family or you've got aging parents. It could drop down to maybe 7 because you would change your circumstances. Everything. So we have to be a little bit mindful that those values change. But that to me is even bigger than culture. And some people may say, oh, Michelle and Claire, well, your values are part of your culture, and they are. They're the foundation, but it's what you grow from there.
And again, very often the question is, when you're recruiting, do you actually ask the person you're recruiting their values? What does that mean for them? Are the questions you're giving them, is it that's going to give you that answer? Because that's from the beginning. If you're recruiting the wrong person, which is totally disaligned with the organization's values, you know, they will down the line, they will leave. Is it whether it's 3 months or, you know, whether it's 3 years, they will leave because they're totally not aligned with. And that's that congruence. I love that congruence word, Michelle.
Yes, yeah. And it could even be these days 3 days.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, you're right.
Because then that's just not going to work. Particularly when we give them this beautiful shining ball of, you know, during the interview, oh, it's good, and they work out going, that's fantastic. You know, you promise them the world, and they come in on the first day, but you're too busy to see them. They just get put with perhaps somebody who didn't know they were going to be training a new person today. So now they're looking at them going, well, I don't know. What am I going to do with you? And as we know, some people can have a wonderful skill set, but they don't know how to transfer that skill set onto somebody else. But we haven't talked about Generation Alpha. Now, they are, at the end of this year, the biggest generation, over 2 billion globally.
Wow.
They're 14 years of age. We start at beta next year, so I'm glad we're Alpha this year. But those up to, you know, 0 to 14 at this point in time, if you're not thinking about them in your business as customers, you're way behind the 8 ball.
Right.
If you're not thinking about them as employees, you've got, now I have some clients that are already employing them. Now this is the hospitality industry where you normally would have to be over 18. But what they're finding, particularly in small regional areas in Australia, is that it is hard to get staff. So by employing 14-year-olds in the pizzas, working in the bistros or coffee shops, restaurants where there is no alcohol, they're getting to understand the values of the business. They're getting to understand what business is like. They're getting to understand how to be tolerant of people. They're working with all these different generations, and they're wonderful. So they are part of your business right from the start. I have this one particular client, and they're absolutely beautiful because he's only a young CEO himself, but they really work in a very small fishing village on the coast of Australia. And so he's set it up that the courtesy bus, like the free bus of the club, goes and picks up the kids from their homes. They have to share their grades to make sure that they are performing at school.
Nice.
Then at the end of the roster, the end of their shift, they go home back in the bus. So mum and dad don't have to come and pick them up with the pizza.
Nice.
Makes them very happy.
Nice.
But, you know, what they're doing there is they're showing that true value of what the business is. It's about caring. And I've got one other client who came back after COVID, who'd always believed in the values, but they rewrote them. And for your listeners who have those opportunities where they have to have those conversations, we call them difficult conversations. I think it's more difficult for the person who's giving it than the person who's hearing it half the time. But if you can align that to your values, Claire, if you can say, now, Claire, you know, we're meeting here today because this is a situation that arose yesterday, you know, in the business, blah, blah, blah. What happened there does not align with this value, whatever one it might be, 1, 2. It's not you going, you're wrong. That's our value. Where's the alignment? There isn't any. But also on the other side, if they've done something amazing, it's like, Claire, I really want to say to you, what you did was so amazing yesterday because that aligned with our value, whatever it was, 1, 2, 3. The team go, well, it makes it easy for the conversation, but the team go, that's what, and that's what they want to hear. See, having a whole lot of hoo-ha, that's fantastic. It's very on that peripheral. If we can dig deeper, put it into the values, every team member of every generation feels like they're a part of that, and it's certainly a lot more meaningful. And of course, our customers, those Gen Alpha customers, they are the largest household influencers. And for your listeners, I want to ask them, if they think they're not and they've got a child, think about the last time you bought furniture, the sort of car that you purchased, the colour of the car, the lounge where you ate, and I can pretty well assure you that they've had some major influence. I was speaking in Cairns a couple of weeks ago, and this woman came up, and during my conversation, during the keynote, she said, I don't allow my children to influence. I thought, oh, that's fine. Anyway, she came up later on and she said, oh, I'm so sorry. She goes, I have to apologise. She goes, I've actually got an 11-year-old child. And she goes, I've always wanted a red car, Michelle. All my life I've wanted a red car. And she said, I go to the car showroom, we're looking at the cars, I come out with a blue car. I said, how did that happen? And she goes, my 11-year-old said to me, Mum, red cars are hot. Remember, this is a generation that's really looking at the environment, the previous generations. Anyway, I'm not finger pointing, but they're really thinking about. So she said, you're right. They are big household influences. So I'll put a challenge out there to your listeners, Claire.
Excellent.
If they've got children or grandchildren, on how do they influence you?
Absolutely. What an amazing way to finish this conversation, Michelle. Thank you so much for, sharing all that. That's just beautiful. And, it makes you think, it does make you think that when you have, all those generations within, really kind of take the time to listen to all of them. And again, it's about being open and listening, and being open as a leader or as a CEO, as the whole organization. It's really kind of understand and get, to that part, that common part, where they will all understand why they're here.
Definitely, yeah. If you don't share that as a leader, then they don't know what journey you're on.
Yeah.
And they respect you for that. Be vulnerable. Be together. It's teamwork. It's about communication. Thank you for this. It was wonderful having this conversation. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you very much. And Michelle, if anybody wants to connect with you, where do they go?
Sure. So as I said, I'm in Australia, but I do travel globally. I do like a half-strength latte. Happy to share my story, and I've got online, but I love meeting people face to face. So my website is michellepascoe.com. So they can look me up there, or my email's pretty simple. It's just michelle@michellepascoe.com.
Brilliant. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that insight, that passion of yours. It's just, it's beautiful. And I hope to welcome you to Jersey very, very soon, Michelle. We've got it on the to-do list.
We have, definitely. With just another little thing that I'm bringing back, because I love travel and I also love food. But more about that next conversation. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
For more on creating exceptional customer service for your business, head to clairebosque.com. Listen to more episodes of The Shine on CX Show, wherever you get your podcasts. The Shine on CX Show.